In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Amber Erickson, and she's heading over as the head of marketing at Seed Technology. And Seed Technology is a very interesting product in a very interesting market. Basically, it's dispensary technology to increase profits for providers of the material. So basically, today we want to learn about Seed, what Seed is all about, but also how Amber's thinking about growth for the company as she's building out the inbound strategy for the team. So Amber, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so maybe just for everybody who hasn't heard about Seed technology and who isn't as familiar with the market, maybe give us a quick overview. What is Seed all about, and who's it for?
Sure. Seed Technology offers in-store customer-facing digital technology for cannabis retailers. So the audience specifically is dispensaries in legal markets. Currently, we focus mostly on the US and Canada, but growth opportunities are there as the world changes and policies change worldwide. But that is the audience of licensed cannabis retailers, and both on the medical and the adult use or recreational side. So our technology is that in-store engagement kind of experience. So we're talking TV menus and feature boards, interactive tablets, and a self-service ordering kiosk kind of technology. So interactive, customers can touch the screens, learn about your products, understand what inventory is currently in stock, and get that education they need to make really informed decisions to have a safe and productive consumption event.
And in sort of, maybe tell us a little more about maybe the people that are not as familiar, like where do we find the screens? Like what's the typical business looking like? How large do they have to be that the screen makes sense? Is there certain square meters that they need? If it's in smaller locations, maybe share a little bit, like where is, where are the screens typically based, placed really efficiently?
That's a great question. And it really depends on the retailer or operator. There's some cases where it's a really small storefront or footprint. So they want the screens to be able to help customers be informed before they get to the transaction. So in a lot of markets, there's a one-to-one relationship with customer and bud tender or sales associate, whatever that role is called. So somebody comes out and gets you, brings you back. And so the length of time the transaction takes depends on how many customers can get through the store in one day. And of course, operators want to provide the education needed, the customer service that the consumer or patient wants. So the screens can help educate on what the current daily deals are, new products, discounts, events, social media types of things. So in small stores, it is a little bit more strategic. Actually, all stores, it's strategic, but in larger stores where they have more opportunity or space to play with, there might be a self-service kiosk in the waiting room. So you can place your order while you're waiting and have it be fulfilled and ready to pick up, which makes your transaction that much quicker, more people through the store, especially those consumers who know exactly what they want and what their order is going to be. So we've seen a lot of unique cases of, like I said, that waiting room, a touchscreen kiosk, educational areas if the store is a little larger, like an Apple store kind of idea where you can go up to a tablet and interact and browse and learn, maybe even place your order there. And then the larger screens can be educational. They could also be just branding. You could be playing a brand video to help people feel more connected with who you are as a brand, your social activities and efforts, upcoming events. So it's an interesting place, and it's starting to be more like traditional retail where screens really can be a brand awareness driver, an advertising channel. It's an in-store advertising. You already have a captive audience. You might as well give them more of that appropriate brand messaging and offers and opportunities to help guide their behavior when they're in the store. So it depends on what your stores and what your retail goals are, but there's a lot of opportunity.
It makes a lot of sense. Like, how do these businesses learn about Seed? Like, how do they get to the spark of the idea that they should bring in those screens, particularly for the cannabis products, but also, how do they learn about Seed? Like, what's a typical journey looking like for somebody? Or in other words, what are the client acquisition channels you guys leverage?
The industry is really interesting where it's still very small and everybody knows each other. A lot of people are at the same events. So far it's been a lot of word of mouth and referrals. So we integrate with POS systems specific to cannabis. So since we have an API integration with them, there's a so their products can then be in stock, and we make sure that we're not showing, available products if they're not actually available. So that integration is really important. But so those partner referrals have been a big game changer for us. And then direct, it's a small industry, so there aren't that many players in traditional retail. If you want to get digital screens, there's a million people you could go to, and in cannabis there's a handful. So most operators, especially if they've been in the industry and talking to other people or maybe worked at other dispensaries, they have an idea of who the players are, and our challenge is to make sure we're top of mind in that point. So that's where connections with or relationships with our partner vendors and relationships with consultants who help new operators find their ideal tech stack, and just being at these events and at the places where the industry is gathering and talking. But it really has been that referral and word of mouth, and then outbounding and some paid ads just to capture that audience that maybe isn't as entrenched in the industry, doesn't maybe know where to look. And then going forward, there's more of an effort on content education, SEO, to kind of fill out the trifecta of how people can get to us. As I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest challenge for us, and probably for a lot of brands outside of cannabis even, where we just need to be known. People need to know that we're an option. And kind of back to the original question, in newer markets particularly, people now kind of understand the value of having digital screens. So it's less of us saying you need TV menus, or you need self-serve kiosks, or you need these tools. It's kind of like they're expecting to do it because their competitors are doing it. And in more established markets like California, Colorado, it's a little less of a given. It's a little, some stores do it, some don't. But in newer markets particularly, everyone kind of does. So I don't think there's as much of, should I have screens? And it's more of, how should I use my screens? Where should they be? Can I do something more interesting than the person down the street who's using them in a kind of basic way?
Oh, super interesting. You mentioned actually sort of word of mouth, outbound, some paid acquisition. How do you think about the website? Like, what role do you think the website plays at the moment, and where do you see it sort of, what role do you see it playing moving forward?
The website is work in progress. we could say, I just started in this role a couple months ago, so I'm still new to this organization. I've been in the cannabis industry for a couple of years doing marketing, but my role was more content specific there, and so website was my life. And now in this role, it's a little bit more of picking your battles. I think on day one, I wanted to make a lot of changes, but is that a priority today? Are there other things I need to do instead? So the website has been a little bit of, it gives the information it needs to give. And thankfully, the product that we offer isn't all that complicated. So it can be done in fewer pages and with fewer words, and a few images can tell a big story when you're talking about signage. So at this point, it's more of small iterations to make it a better conversion. At this point, it's been very minimal traffic. People aren't really searching as much for what we offer. So it's been more direct traffic or that referral traffic. So the way I think about it is, does this do a good enough job of educating people when they land here to get the questions answered that they have? And if not, what relatively easy and minor things can I do to help that be the case? And or what's on my list for next quarter or the quarter after to make it even better?
No, super interesting. What I think is interesting, you mentioned actually you were in the cannabis market for a while as a marketer. Now, how do you as a marketer keep educating yourself? Because in a way that market is very specific, but there's a lot of generic marketing content out there. Like, where do you personally like to go to educate yourself when it comes to marketing in the cannabis industry?
I will give the real answer in that.
Appreciate that.
Sometimes I don't, sometimes it's very specific of, I need some fresh ideas on how to do something very specific and narrow. If somebody's coming to me saying, I want to do this thing, or we need this to happen very quickly, what ideas do you have? I might go search that very specific, moment in time kind of activity. But generally, I don't come from marketing. Journalism was my background. So my lens is always education and value, and how I can provide that to an audience. I've kind of had to learn the marketing and a little bit more sales oriented part of the business. And So I often think about it as a consumer first. If somebody wants to send something and, they want to send an email and it has this subject line, I'll probably be like, I would never open that as a consumer. So I kind of use my own experience as a critical consumer first in my approach of what I think might work. But then there's all these things that I do have to learn about. And so it's a lot. There's a lot of things to try to learn, and to be a generalist is incredibly difficult. That has been my real reality in this role as a head of marketing and the marketing team of one. So I have to prioritize and figure out where I need to focus. And then if I need to learn it, I go learn it. And if I don't have time to learn it, or I don't want to, maybe I can outsource that activity to somebody who is an expert in that field. So where do I learn it? It's kind of all over the place, depending on what I feel like I need to learn in that moment.
Very good. I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today as we're slowly moving towards the end of the interview. You ready for those?
Okay, I'm ready.
What is the last book you read?
I don't remember the name of it, which says something bad, but I like to read cheesy beach reads, just a way to settle my brain to not think about life and work.
What is one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
More demos and better demos is our tagline. So getting more of those inbounds, conversion rates, then getting to sales and doing a better demo and being able to really articulate the value really effectively of what we offer.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing you would fix for your role as a marketer?
That's a really interesting question. I would automate it all so that all I had to do is keep an eye on it.
That's very good. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Just progress. Marketing is not always a quick game, and my whole strategy around it is managing and balancing the short-term wins with the long-term true accelerator kind of activities that are just sustainable and consistent. And so not seeing progress quickly enough, or not seeing those tangible results as fast as I want them to see, is a real struggle.
I think a lot of people who are listening and can very much resonate with that struggle, that balance. Very last question. If we do a bit of time travel and we go back to the days of St. Catherine University, now you're heading out of formal education, out into the world of, writing, copywriting, journalism, or marketing in the end. What's the one advice you would give yourself for the journey?
And that was such a strange transformational time. That's where I decided that I was a writer. A friend of mine said, well, of course I know what you're going to do. You're a writer. And I was like, oh my God, I am. So I think what I would tell myself is to trust that you are, that thing that you say, I am this, or I love this. Trust that you can turn that into something that you love, and you can turn it into a lucrative, satisfying, rewarding career at the same time. So, I guess the advice would be to listen to that, to trust that, and to keep taking steps to do that, and you'll be just fine.
I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Platform Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about seed technology today, what's the one thing they should remember?
I think they should remember that in-store experience really does matter. And even in a world where e-commerce and online shopping is more and more of a trend, there's still a lot of things happening in store. People are still shopping in store. People are picking up orders in store, returning orders. So they are coming into stores. They are, interacting there and engaging there. And Seed allows dispensaries to be more profitable and to stay up to date with the modern trends that consumers expect. So listen to your consumers, be where they need you to be, even if your industry isn't quite there yet. And that's what Seed's trying to do.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Platform Presents.